Hello, this is just a very short video, and it concerns our ideas about darkness in a sort of metaphysical sense, really, um, because it's one of those subjects which gets quite fetishized, really. And I think one thing to understand about this idea of metaphysical darkness is that, of course, it's basically a poetic phrase, really, and it doesn't refer to a thing which is out there, in a sense. What it refers to, and doesn't even refer to darkness itself, what it refers to is a failure of vision, essentially. Um, and I think once you see that, then you realize that there are different ways in which um, a person's vision can fail, so to speak. Um, there are ways in which it fails in that a person simply cannot bring enough light to something to see into darkness, into what hasn't yet been discovered, into the unknown. Yeah. And then there is another sort of failure, which is a turning away from the unknown, as simply an unwillingness or incapacity to look. And so you see there are different kinds of failure of vision. Yeah. And none of these failures of vision are actually placed within the unknown itself. They are failures in that sense. Um, um, it's interesting that um, it's interesting that seeing the darkness as a thing out there, it's in its way, it's almost a way of our own failures defending themselves by deflecting any sense of responsibility onto the outside world or an other or an external power or what have you. Um, Now, when we look at things like the idea of psychological shadow, which people sometimes talk about, I think you can see from this something that might be relevant here, in that a person's shadow, poetically speaking, can be either bright or dark in a sense. And you could look upon this as linked to what we've just said about the failure of vision and the different sorts of the failing of vision. For instance, if somebody uh, is able to look at the unknown but somehow can't bring any light to it, you could maybe think of their shadow as being dark, poetically speaking. Whereas, because they will likely be sort of like overcome by this sense of the obscure, the unknown, the impenetrable, or what have you, it would maybe overcome them in a sense. On the other hand, uh, when somebody is simply unwilling to look into the unknown, unwilling to look into the dark, you could maybe characterize their shadow as bright because uh, there is a denial of darkness in a sense, or denial of the unknown. And so maybe you would think of their shadow as poetically bright, whereas the other person, you would think of their shadow as poetically dark. But the thing is, both these things are to do with a failure of vision. And I think that's probably the key point that I'm thinking of